Good Sunday to you all this afternoon. Hopefully you got to get to church out there, but we got some big issues brewing over in China. Now, I know a lot of you don't live in China. In fact, probably none of you live in China, but it is the second largest economy in the world next to the United States. And what happens in China doesn't stay in China. It impacts everyone everywhere else, including U.S. markets and U.S. banks. We need to talk about what's happening because some major things are happening. This will tell you what happens next in the United States financial markets. This is going to tell you what happens next in the trade deals that happen. And this will impact what your store shelves show price-wise for all the imported goods. Let's talk about it. Welcome to the Poplar Report. I'm Steve Poplar. I'm an accountant by trade. And these are the things that the mainstream media will not talk about, because it's just really too dangerous to do so. They don't want to talk against their masters. They're getting money from China, a lot of these mainstream media outlets. They don't want to admit that, but it's true. They make a lot of money from the Chinese Communist Party sending them money. Anyway, if you listen to the Communist Party over in China, you're going to hear how wonderful everything is. In fact, in just next week, we have the two sessions where they're basically going to have speeches and political stuff, and they're all going to tell us how wonderful everything is and how much stimulus they're going to do and how on track everything is. But the truth is that the Chinese government is panicking. They got some big issues. They are going from a 10% tariff that the United States is placing on Chinese goods to a 20% tariff just this week. That's big. 20% tariff on everything that comes from China to the United States. That's a lot of stuff. Can they hit us back with tariffs? They can, but it won't do much good. Now, China's already implemented some tariffs against U.S. goods back. But I mean, most stuff goes across the ocean to the United States, and most of those ships go back to China empty. We used to export our paper, our trash, to China because it was so cheap to send it. It was so cheap because those ships are so empty, might as well send it back, right? So they send the trash over to China. They then remanufacture that into recycled goods and stuff like that because it's free. Trash is free, so and the shipping is free, so they might as well just bring it back and then turn it into something useful. So they're facing tariffs. That's major. Another thing that they're facing is a lot of political and military pressure. The United States military is about to be rebuilt. It's already starting. It's generals and admirals that had no reason and business being in the U.S. military are being purged. They're being replaced by war fighters. They're being replaced by generals and admirals who know how to make a fighting force. So that's happening. And with their eyes on Taiwan, they are concerned that the United States could start to reaccelerate its military potential and cause China a big headache there. Not only that, but manufacturing in China has not been good for the last 2 years or so. Ever since the cough came to an end, basically, and with the tariffs that Trump had put on China in his first term, and then the Biden administration just left on. In fact, the Biden administration actually added more tariffs. You won't hear that if you listen to the Democrats, but Biden actually added more tariffs. Now, Trump is adding even more tariffs, big, huge tariffs. This is going to hit their economy hard, and we've already seen a lot of manufacturing moving out of China, moving to other countries like Vietnam, Indonesia, Philippines, and other places, including Taiwan. These manufacturers are moving over to India. They're moving anywhere they can to get away from these Chinese tariffs that the United States has. And so Chinese factories are getting more and more empty by the day. Every year, they're seeing more of these companies fleeing from China and moving their manufacturing elsewhere. So this is massively impacting the Chinese economy. There are large numbers of unemployed Chinese wandering around without a job and wondering how they're going to feed themselves and feed their families. They have been enforcing homelessness laws. You have to get a permit to move to a city. You have to prove that you have a job. You have to get approval to move the city. And otherwise, you're forced to live in the countryside. You're forced to live in the provinces. And people are being forced out into the provinces to hopefully scrape by growing some food or something. But it's very, very difficult out there. And there's a lot of discontent in the whole country. You won't hear that on Chinese media because, of course, everyone's happy over in China. Well, there's been a whole bunch of industrial fires, factories getting set on fire. Apparently, disgruntled employees are burning down their previous place of business because they're so upset about being fired. Things go kablooey over in China a lot too. While they don't have boomsticks, they can get sticks of boom, and they can make buildings go kablooey. Okay, they do this. They don't like talking about that on the media, but there's a lot of discontent across China, and the government there is concerned. If the economy doesn't get going again, the grand bargain that the population has cut with the government is, okay, you can oppress us, but you better make sure the economy is growing. Well, the economy isn't growing anymore, and people are getting tired of being oppressed. So not good options there for the Chinese government right now. And so they're trying to distract everyone with anything that they can possibly do. Task Force 107 decided to sail down to Australia, sail around Australia, get down south of Australia, and then do some live fire missile tests south of Australia, because that's a convenient place to do that, right in Australian airspace. And they didn't tell the Australian government they're going to do this. They just got on the radio and like, hey, aircraft coming down here, we're doing live fire tests, so you should probably not keep going this way. An airplane's just being told this over the airwaves. And the Australian government going, like, what? You're shooting at planes and stuff? Like, what's going on here? Clearly, a shot across the bow to the to the Australian government from the Chinese government. Not only that, but we got this new coronavirus. Yes, because one cough is not enough. We need a second one. And this, people are like, well, are they creating this in the lab or something like that? Yeah, it's the Wuhan lab. But where they got it from is they got it from the pangolins. Yes, the pangolins and the bats. Yes, those are back. They are getting sick in China, and they wanted to figure out what it was, and so they brought them into the lab, and lo and behold, it's a new coronavirus. Yay. And we now have reports of some individuals over in China actually getting sick from this. Yes, we got diseases coming up from the Congo. We got diseases coming out of China again. They really should stop eating weird stuff. If you've never heard foreigners go off on China and make fun of China for eating everything, it's truly a fun thing to listen to. So they have the coronavirus, they got the tariffs hitting them, they got their manufacturing in decline. One bright spot is their whole AI thing. They produced an AI by ripping off ChatGPT. They basically backwards engineered it after they stole a bunch of the code. So very innovative, I guess. And it didn't take them that many people or that much computing power to replicate ChatGPT because they stole it. Anyway, there's this battle over chips, computer chips for AI as well as for other computing functions. This is a battle between Taiwan and China proper and the United States. And they are being locked out of advanced computer chips. And this is really starting to impact their economy. It's making it difficult to produce cell phones, which they're really trying to dominate. It's really hard for them to produce cars. And they do produce more cars than any country on the face of the earth. They produce more cars than anybody else, including the United States. They export a lot of cars and they use a lot of cars domestically. cars, vans, all sorts of production lines that could be turned into, military production lines. That's happening. So what happens with all this? Now, they just pumped out $55 billion of stimulus into their banks because their banks are becoming destabilized. So their banks are massively destabilizing. Their manufacturing is in decline. Politically, they're becoming unstable. Is this sounding like a good thing for China? Now, you have to realize this, that the United States and other European countries have loaned so much money to China, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely insane how much money we've loaned China. I know everyone kind of says that, like, the United States has massive national debt and it's owed to China. Well, that used to be true, but now China doesn't really own that much U.S. debt. China actually is massively indebted to the United States for all that infrastructure stuff they were doing. Not only their infrastructure, but they've also been building out the infrastructure in other countries in the hopes that those other countries will default on those loans and they can then secure naval ports. They are building up their network of military bases around the world that have landing strips, also have naval port facilities. This is super important to them for trade, but then also so that their navy can go around the world and harass countries like Australia. So great fun there. Australia is not enjoying that right now, being threatened by missile frigates and such. But how long until they do that to the United States? China is really upset with Australia sailing its warships through the Strait of Taiwan. They're really upset with the United States, the UK, and other countries that have also been provoking them like this. How long until they come over and start harassing the United States, sailing their warships right off the U.S. coast and firing missiles just to say, hey, if you're going to do that to us, we're going to do that to you. We're going to sit here in, navigable waters, technically international waters, and then we know that you don't like us coming here. We're going to do it anyway because you keep coming up to the Chinese coast and harassing us. So that's probably going to happen, and how will Trump respond to that? I don't know. That's probably the only reason why the Chinese haven't done it yet is because Trump's a little hard to predict what he will do. And usually when he does something, it usually hurts whatever country he's actually going after. He literally pulls the smartest people into the room who have access to all the information and says, how can we hurt this country? How can we make them squeal? And he does. And so every time they say no to him, every time that they push back on what Trump considers to be reasonable demands, Trump just goes out there and starts squeezing. And usually the countries come around relatively quickly because they realize that the United States really does hold most of the cards. And this conflict with China is going to come back and hit us because we've loaned so much money to them. Mostly our banks have loaned so much money to them. They really kind of control the U.S. economy. All they have to do is just default on that debt, and U.S. banks will start collapsing overnight. That's not a good situation to be in. China is massively investing in purchasing up gold and quietly buying up massive amounts of silver. We see the gold market starting to implode out there. China has been scooping up all that gold at discount prices, and they are starting to drive the price of gold up and up and up. Russia, China, other Brics countries scooping up gold. And the secret is that nobody wants to talk about is they're also scooping up massive amounts of silver. Silver is used in a lot of military applications, space applications, and electronics applications. Silver is a strategic metal that the United States doesn't have a stockpile of. And that is a problem. Every Tomahawk missile, every torpedo, every advanced weapon system uses a lot of silver. We're talking kilos of silver in some of these weapon systems. And we need a lot of silver in order to make these weapons, and yet we don't have a strategic stockpile of it anymore. China is ready to wage economic war on the United States, but right now they are weak and they don't have the upper hand. They're going to have to significantly weaken or destabilize the United States before they can actually engage in any kind of economic warfare. How does this all bode for everything in the future? Well, China really can destroy U.S. financial markets by sneezing. They are pumping out more stimulus, which always helps U.S. markets as well. More money is created in China, it tends to flow over to the United States. A lot of these people, a lot of these banks and institutions over in China want to do anything they can to get their money out of China and into a safe jurisdiction like the United States. And so that's why they're buying up a lot of this farmland. Some of it's nefarious, but a lot of it is just them trying to hide their money somewhere safe. And we see that happening a lot. And they need to get their money out of China. And there's all sorts of embezzling schemes to make that happen. All right, friends, we're going to keep our eye on China, but it is going to impact the U.S. markets sooner or later. And hopefully you guys are aware of these things, and we'll keep our eye on things. But the reason why they're pumping stimulus out is because it's fundamentally unhealthy over there. The stimulus is a short-term sugar high for U.S. stocks, but it underlines a massive problem that will impact U.S. stocks in the long haul. All right, friends, thanks so much for watching. If you want to check out another video from this channel, there's one right up here. I'll see you over there, or I'll see you guys later. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report out.